The epic tale of Saint Elisha, prophet of miracles. Introduction: the mantle of prophecy. In the annals of ancient Israel, amidst a time of spiritual turmoil and shifting allegiances, a divine beacon arose, not with the thunderous pronouncements of his predecessor, but with a quiet, steadfast power that would reshape the very fabric of the land. This is the tale of Elisha, the son of Shaphat, a man chosen by God to carry the mantle of prophecy, to walk in the footsteps of Elijah, and to manifest the miraculous power of the Most High. Chapter 1: The Call and the Passing of a Giant. Our story begins not in the grand halls of kings, but in the humble, sun-drenched fields of Abel-Meholah. There, Elisha, a prosperous farmer, toiled with 12 yokes of oxen, his life deeply rooted in the predictable rhythm of the earth and the seasons. He was a man of his community, well established, with no apparent desire for the tumultuous life of a prophet. But the divine, in its infinite wisdom, had other, far grander plans for him. One day, a figure emerged from the wilderness, a man whose very presence commanded awe and fear. The prophet Elijah, cloaked in his iconic hairy garment, a whirlwind of God's judgment and power. Without uttering a single word, Elijah performed an act of profound symbolic weight. He simply cast his prophetic mantle upon Elisha, a silent yet unmistakable summons to a destiny far greater than plowing fields or counting harvests. Elisha, divinely attuned to the significance of this act, recognized the call not as an interruption, but as an undeniable decree from heaven. His response was immediate and utterly profound, a complete break from his former life and a declaration of unwavering commitment. He slaughtered his oxen, used the very farming implements that symbolized his past life as fuel for the fire, and shared the meat with his people, a final, communal farewell to his old existence, a burning bridge behind him. From that pivotal moment, he became Elijah's devoted servant, his constant companion, learning at the feet of a master, absorbing every lesson, every nuance of prophetic ministry, preparing for the immense burden he would one day bear. The day arrived, a day etched in the memory of those who witnessed it, when Elijah was to be taken from this earthly realm. Elisha, clinging to his master, his heart filled with both sorrow and a fierce determination, refused to leave his side, even as Elijah tested his resolve by urging him to stay behind. Elisha famously declared, "As the Lord lives, and as you yourself live, I will not leave you." He desperately longed for a double portion of Elijah's spirit, not for personal glory, but for the immense task that lay ahead. As they walked near the Jordan, suddenly, a miraculous vision unfolded. A chariot of fire, drawn by horses of flame, descended from the heavens. In a blinding flash, a whirlwind of glory, Elijah ascended into the sky, and his iconic mantle, the very symbol of prophetic authority, fell to the ground. Elisha, his heart both grieving the departure of his mentor and inspired by the incredible spectacle, picked up the sacred garment. And just as he had prayed, the spirit of Elijah, indeed, rested powerfully upon him, empowering him for the mighty works to come. Chapter 2: Water from the Desert, Food for the Hungry. With the mantle of Elijah now firmly in his grasp, Elisha stepped into his prophetic ministry, and the signs of God's power immediately followed, marking him as the true successor. His very first act mirrored Elijah's own dramatic feat as he stood by the Jordan River, took the fallen mantle, and struck the waters with it, declaring, "Where is the Lord, the God of Elijah?" And just as for his master, the waters miraculously parted, allowing him to cross on dry ground. The sons of the prophets, witnessing this awe-inspiring event, bowed before him, proclaiming, "The spirit of Elijah rests on Elisha." He then arrived in the city of Jericho, where a dire problem afflicted the inhabitants. The very waters of their spring, their lifeblood, were bitter and brought death, causing barrenness in the land. The people appealed to Elisha for help. With a simple vessel of salt, Elisha walked to the source of the spring and, with a powerful declaration of divine authority, cast the salt into the waters, stating, "Thus says the Lord, I have healed these waters. From now on neither death nor barrenness shall come from it." And so it was. The waters were purified, bringing life and sustenance back to Jericho, a testament to God's ability to transform even the most toxic of circumstances. But Elisha's miracles were not solely grand displays of power. They were often acts of profound compassion, meeting the everyday, desperate needs of the common people. When a poor widow, a devout woman whose husband had served the prophets, cried out to Elisha, her sons were about to be taken as slaves to pay an insurmountable debt. Elisha, hearing her plight, asked what she had in her house. "Only a small flask of oil," she replied. He then commanded her to gather every empty jar she could find, both from her home and from her neighbors. With profound faith, she obeyed, and from that single, small flask of oil, Elisha miraculously filled every single vessel. The oil continued to flow until there were no more jars to fill, allowing her to sell the oil, pay her debts, and live in abundance, her family saved from bondage. During a severe famine, when the sons of the prophets were near starvation and a poisonous stew, accidentally concocted from wild gourds, threatened their lives, Elisha's wisdom and divine power again intervened. When they cried out, "O man of God, there is death in the pot," Elisha simply commanded that a handful of meal be thrown into the stew. Instantly, the poison was neutralized, turning death into sustenance, and the men ate without harm. And in another instance of divine provision, when a meager offering of 20 loaves of barley bread and some fresh grain was brought to feed 100 hungry men, Elisha, echoing the very generosity of the Lord he served, declared that all would eat their fill, and there would even be food left over. Though his servant doubted, Elisha insisted, and just as he prophesied, the loaves were multiplied, and all ate their fill, with food indeed left over. His ministry was a continuous testament to God's boundless providence, even in the direst of times and circumstances. Chapter 3. Healing the leper, raising the dead. Elisha's fame spread far and wide, transcending the borders of Israel and reaching even to the powerful Syrian commander, Naaman, a mighty warrior, but tragically afflicted with the dreaded, incurable disease of leprosy. Hearing from a young Israelite servant girl in his household about the prophet in Israel, Naaman journeyed with great fanfare, carrying rich gifts and expecting a grand ritualistic cure from the prophet. But Elisha, through a messenger, simply instructed him to wash 7 times in the muddy Jordan River. Naaman, proud and insulted by such a seemingly trivial and undignified command, initially scoffed and refused, feeling humiliated that the prophet didn't even come out to meet him. Yet, persuaded by his wise and humble servants, who urged him to consider the simplicity of the command, Naaman, in an extraordinary act of humility, finally obeyed. He dipped himself 7 times in the Jordan. As he emerged from the murky waters for the 7th time, a breathtaking miracle occurred. His flesh was completely restored, clean and soft as a child's. Every trace of leprosy vanished. Overwhelmed with gratitude, Naaman returned to Elisha, declaring his newfound faith in the God of Israel and attempting to offer lavish gifts, which Elisha humbly refused. It was a powerful testimony to God's unassuming yet absolute healing power, requiring only faith and obedience. Perhaps the most profound and emotionally charged of Elisha's miracles, echoing that of his revered master Elijah, was the raising of the dead. A wealthy and devout Shunammite woman, who had shown Elisha immense hospitality by building him a small room where he could rest during his travels, was blessed by the prophet with a son, despite her advanced age and barrenness. Years later, unspeakable tragedy struck, and the beloved child suddenly died in the arms of his father. In her profound grief, the woman, filled with an unshakable faith in Elisha's connection to God, desperately sought him out, traveling swiftly to Mount Carmel, where he was. Upon finding him, she laid her lifeless son before him. Elisha, deeply moved by her distress and the magnitude of the situation, sent his servant Gehazi ahead, but the child remained unresponsive. Elisha then came himself, entered the room where the dead child lay, and with fervent prayer laid himself upon the boy, mouth to mouth, eye to eye, hand to hand. He stretched himself upon the child, breathing life back into the lifeless form. Slowly, miraculously, the child's body began to warm. He sneezed 7 times, and then his eyes opened. Life returned to him, a breathtaking demonstration of God's supreme power over death itself, bringing unimaginable joy to the grieving mother and proving Elisha's divine commission. Conclusion: the enduring legacy. Elisha continued his prophetic work for many decades, advising kings, revealing enemy plots, and performing countless other wonders, making an iron axe head float, striking an entire Aramean army with temporary blindness, and even, remarkably, after his own death, bringing a dead man back to life simply by the touch of his bones when the man was hastily thrown into Elisha's tomb. His life was a continuous outpouring of God's grace, a testament to the fact that divine power is not limited by human frailty or circumstance. He was not a solitary figure like Elijah, but often lived among and guided the sons of the prophets, establishing schools and communities, nurturing the next generation of spiritual leaders. His miracles, though often quiet, practical, and personal in their immediate impact, collectively painted a vivid picture of a God intimately involved in the lives of his people, a God who heals, provides, restores, and intervenes on behalf of the humble and the suffering. Saint Elisha, whose very name means "my God is salvation," truly lived up to his calling. He walked humbly with his God, faithfully carrying the mantle of prophecy, and in doing so, he became an extraordinary channel for immense divine power, leaving behind a legacy of unwavering faith, profound compassion, and miraculous intervention that continues to inspire to this very day. His compelling story reminds us that even in the darkest of times, God's light shines brightest through those who answer his call with obedient hearts and unwavering faith, trusting in his miraculous provision.